Good morning, Instagram. Good morning, Facebook. Thank you guys all so much for joining another Mystic Fitness Live flow. So I'm here this morning with Cheryl. She's going to be demonstrating. She's been coming to Mystic for how long?
3 years.
3 years. Awesome. A little bit different now that it's on the field, but still definitely enjoyable. A couple of quick announcements. You guys know that we're live every single morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. And then Saturday and Sunday, we switch to 9 a.m. So you can sleep in a little bit there. Come out to Victory Field or join us online through Facebook or Instagram. Sometimes our Instagram might cut in and out, but oh my gosh, this cat is climbing a tree looking at us right now. Oh my gosh.
What a cutie.
He's like, I've made a really bad decision. Wow, I've never seen a cat do that. Okay, anywho, so if you want to join us on Victory Field, just make sure you pre-sign up online. That makes it a lot easier for us. We're also running some Bikram classes indoors, Tuesday afternoons, 4 p.m., Thursdays, 4 p.m., and then Sundays at 4 p.m. So again, pre-register for those ones because spots are limited. And in addition, we're running a couple evening classes on Victory Field. So for instance, we have tomorrow, I'm teaching at 6 p.m. It is not live or streamed, so it's just you, your mat, and the field. So come on down. We'll see you guys there. There's also one of those Saturday at 4 p.m. So if you guys are looking for a flow in the evenings, we got Wednesdays and Saturdays at 4 p.m. out on the field. So let's go ahead and get started. Come into a comfortable position on your mat, either laying down or seated. Whatever feels best for your body to come into some breath. Starting with an inhalation and exhalation. Taking this opportunity to connect with your breath. Relax the body completely. And starting to allow the process of grounding to take place. Perhaps imagining that you have roots growing into the earth. Feeling that breath starting from the lowermost belly, reaching all the way slowly up towards the rib cage and collarbones. And then that exhale is a slow descend all the way down. Just keep this breath moving. And our physical body has arrived. That's usually the easy part. And now it's just a matter of pulling that emotional and mental energy onto your mat as well. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning and there's a big day ahead of us. It's very easy to jump into future thought. But I'm here to challenge you and ask you to bring that energy, bring yourself into the present moment. So feel the weight of the body, feel each breath, feel the gentle breeze across the skin or the damp grass on the toes or fingers. Rather than letting any of these things become distractions, allow them to bring you back into the moment. Take 5 more breaths here. As your next breath comes in, start to wiggle the fingers and toes. Maybe a gentle rocking of the head from left to right, or reaching the arms up overhead, finding a full body stretch. Perhaps rolling at the wrists, and if you're laying down, you might be able to get those ankles involved as well. Notice how when you start movement, the mind gets a little excited and wants to jump into the next thing. Just try to remain present. If you're laying down, maybe pulling the knees into the chest, giving yourself a little squeeze. If you're seated, maybe opening the arms in a T and then crossing the arms over the body, giving yourself a big hug. And all of the students reclining, let's go ahead and bring yourself back up into a seated position where we'll begin our practice together. If seated is a bit uncomfortable, consider placing a block underneath the sacrum so you can sit more comfortably. Eyes are closed. Bringing the hands over your heart. And it's very subtle, but I want you to bring your hands over your heart, and rather than just placing your hands here, I want you to feel your hands here. There's a difference there. And so often in life we're moving so fast that it's almost like we're skating rather than actually enjoying each little bit. So rather than just skating over this heart, let's really bring our full attention into your heart center. Letting whatever arises be heard. We'll begin our class with the single sound of Om. Starting with the cleansing breath. Breathe in and out. And for Om, inhale. Have a healthy practice, everyone. With the inhale, circle, sweep those arms up overhead. Maybe the gaze follows up to the sky, just creating some circles throughout the wrists, creating some movement that will prepare our wrists for a little bit of weight bearing throughout our practice, especially whenever we're practicing on the ground. It's a little bit softer, so it can be a little bit more challenging on the wrists. Let's open and close the palms a couple times like you're trying to flick water off of the fingertips. Forearms will start to burn just a touch. And then finish that off by shaking them out nice and vigorously. So letting anything that no longer belongs within you just fling off of the fingertips. Creating some movements for our shoulders this morning. Creating some circles, maybe one arm at a time or both arms moving together. Like a back stroke and then a front stroke. Again, we're preparing our upper back, our shoulders, chest, especially after having a really good, nice, long sleep. We get pretty tight in our shoulders and chest and neck. When you're ready, we'll transition into our table pose. So take your time to arrive. We're going to stack the wrists right below those shoulders, knees below the hips. Finding some spinal movement. So with that inhale, drop the chest, gaze forward. And with the exhale, curl and round into the back as you press the floor away. Again, that inhale is an opening and arching. Exhale, curling and rounding. So feeling that connection here. You can get loose in the elbows, in the neck, in the hips. Letting your body just explore this movement. So whenever we come into a tabletop position, it's almost like we're a little kid again and we're exploring how to crawl. So kind of have that image in your mind of just experiencing freedom of movement. You'll notice as the body progresses into this posture, it's going to start to crave more organic movement. So that could be rocking the hips from side to side. That could be alternating between a child's pose and a gentle upward-facing dog, chest opening. Maybe some full pelvic bowl rotations are calling your name. Whatever works for you here is exactly where you need to be. So keep that in mind. The body is very intelligent and it's going to lead you in the right direction. You just have to let that judgment take a back seat. If you started with some pelvic bowl rotations in one direction, make sure you find them in the opposite rotation. That way we're evening out each side. This is also a great opportunity to notice what parts of the body are feeling a little extra tight. What's going to need a little bit more of your attention this morning. Eventually letting this lead you into your child's pose. So sinking the hips back, knees can be as close together or as far apart as you choose. Feel the earth below you. And in this pose, we are literally bowing down. So what does this feel like in the body? What starts to arise within the body as you bow your crown? Showing gratitude, respect, and honor for this practice, as well as each other. And I love practicing on the fields because right here is so peaceful, this little chunk that we have, this little container. And meanwhile, you can hear a little bit of that buzzing outside of this field. Cars going by, people commuting to work. Beautiful reminder of how easy it is to create your own little oasis. One more breath here. Slowly starting to return back up into your tabletop position, finding a nice flat back here. So that location right between the arch and the curl where you feel nice and flat through the spine. Let's tuck the toes under and lift the knees to just a hover. So we're going to start to engage our core connection here. Imagine my hand is on your shoulder blade and you're pressing your shoulders into my hand, squeezing the abdominals without constricting breath for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let the knees lower. Take a couple little wiggles through the hips, maybe an arch and curl. Maybe you tap those feet on the ground, on your mat. We'll take that progression one more time, and this time we'll use that energy to carry ourselves into a strong downward facing dog. Start with that flat back, tuck the toes under, and then lift those knees to a hover. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hips go up and back, downward facing dog. So we're entering our downward facing dog with a little bit more strength and connection here. Start to pedal your feet, bending and extending through the knees, getting into the hamstrings of the body. We call this walking our dog, finding a little movement, maybe even rocking the hips side to side. Let's make sure that the shoulders are rolling down and away from the ears so that you have a nice long connection from the hips all the way down to the crown. Come on over. Hello. To create a little bit more elasticity through the body, let's turn these into some back and forth presses. So with the inhale, we're going to bend the knees to a hover, finding a bent knee dog. The hips pull up and back. Exhale, extending forward into that plank pose. So it kind of looks like a little bit of a leapfrog motion. We're kind of bending the knees, creating a little bit of momentum, and then the exhale is extending forward to a plank pose. Now this can be taken with the knees on the ground as well, alternating between a child's pose and then a supported plank pose. So just finding a couple here. We're just creating some elasticity through the joints and the knees, shoulders, hips. Hi. Take your time getting set up, you guys. And eventually landing in that plank pose. Here we go. Let's set this up. We want a strong, healthy plank. And guess what? I'm here to let you guys know that this challenge is worth your time. You are worthy of this challenge. So the heels are pressing back, chest is slightly pulling forward. Again, imagine my hand right over top of those shoulder blades. Press the upper back into my hand. Breathe in. With the exhale, lower just the knees to the ground. So we're finding that supported plank pose. Chest begins to follow with the elbows pointing back. A little bit of a push-up here. And then inhale, finding your low cobra. So peeling that chest up off the ground. Gaze stays towards the mat. Nice. And exhale, soften back down. Let's find one more low cobra. Inhale, shoulder blades pull together. Lift that crown up. And exhale, release. Making your way back into that downward facing dog. Maybe you visit a table pose along the way. Taking a couple breaths in your downward facing dog. Pedal the feet out. Bend and extend through the knees. Maybe taking those bent knee dogs. Time to prepare for coming towards the front of our mat. So with the inhale, we'll bend those knees, bent knee dog. Exhale, walk or hop to the front of your mat for a forward fold. Now in your forward fold, you can keep a deep bend through the knees. That way you fully relax the lower back. You can even consider bringing the forearms on top of the thighs for a little support. If you have open hamstrings and want to get a little bit deeper, maybe you come into that ragdoll position, grabbing onto opposite elbow. Letting yourself hang here, shaking the head, yes and no. Maybe even taking a little kind of bubble up and down, just to get rid of any stale energy that's being received or being held onto. And whenever we're in a forward fold, we're in an inversion. So that means the blood flow is changing in the body. So we're changing the energy points. This is all through movement. This is all achievable. When you're ready, bringing the fingertips towards the shin. Inhale for a halfway lift. The crown of the head reaches for the front of the field, squeezing that belly in. And exhale, release, relax, fold. Inhale, push through the feet, slowly roll one vertebra at a time. Eventually the head lifts as the arms reach up overhead. And exhale, hands to heart. Ground down here, breathe in, breathe out. Inhale, circle sweep those arms up to the sky. Exhale, bending in the knees, hinging from the hips, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, fold. Hands plant, stepping back to your plank pose. So our favorite position of all time, our plank pose. We love it because it's so strong and we feel confident about it. Those heels are pressing back, crown is reaching forward. Feel that little bit of contrast without hyperextending the elbows. Now choosing to take that first version of chaturanga by lowering the knees to the ground or lowering halfway down with those elbows pointing back. Inhale, upward facing dog, maybe pulling that chest through, or maybe finding that low cobra. Exhale is back into that downward facing dog. Now yogi's choice here throughout your class, taking any version of chaturanga that works best for you. So that might mean that the knee is lower and you come into that low cobra style. It might mean that you keep those knees lifted and take a couple extra push-ups. Whatever is working for you this morning. Let's find 2 breaths in our downward dog. When you're ready, inhale, right leg sweeps up to the sky, bend and extend it a couple times, explore a little movement of that leg elevated. Maybe you open up that hip by bending the knee and dialing the foot over towards the right. When you're ready, lengthen that right leg up, squeeze your glute. With the exhale, pull the knee into the chest, hold. Nice. Inhale, re-extend, reach the right foot back up. Exhale, knee to chest, step to your runner's lunge. We'll start with that back left knee on the ground to start here. So we're finding a low lunge variation. Right foot is planted, left knee on the ground. So it's very common to want to get a really intense hip flexor opener here. But what I'm looking for is to stack that left hip on top of left knee. That way you can press that right foot into the ground. Inhale, arms sweep up to the sky. With the exhale, bringing right hand down onto your hip and finding a side stretch so the left arm comes up and over. So you have to press down into that right foot to feel that stretch coming from the left side body. Last inhale here. Coming back to center, lengthening. And then with the exhale, taking that left arm across right thigh and letting the right arm open for the back of the room or field. So we're finding that spinal twist. You got it. Trying to keep that crown lifted nice and high. Press into that right foot. Find a strong twist. Last breath here. Slowly unwinding. Now here comes our challenge for the morning. Bringing your hands towards your heart. I want you to tuck the left toes under. Use your core connection to press up to your crescent lunge. Nice. In your crescent lunge, you might need to readjust the feet so that the stance is hip distance apart. And then you find a gentle bend to that back left knee. Nice. Finding 10 dips here with the inhale lifting up. With the exhale dipping down as low as you can go. Inhale, rise. Exhale, dip. Feel the legs working here, in and out. This is where the sweat starts to start. Of course, I wasn't counting, so let's go 5, 4. Beautiful breath. 3, 2, 1. Now, as you come down into that squat, hold for 3, 2, 1. Inhale, rise. With the exhale, bring your hands towards your heart. Start to bring the weight into that right foot. Pick left knee up to the chest. Hold it here, hovering. We're getting used to balancing on the ground. It's a little bit different than balancing on hard wood. Our dismount is into the chair pose. So let that left foot land, sink the hips down, chair position. Notice if you're finding an arch in the spine, we want to find a nice flat back. So you have to tuck that pelvis under just a touch. Sink a little bit lower here. Let the weight transfer into the heels for 3, 2, 1, and fold forward. Hang out here. Shake the head, yes and no. Feel how the energy in the legs had to hold really strong for a couple minutes there. And now the energy of the legs can relax and you can let that blood flow just move through you naturally. So when we're practicing yoga, we're actually practicing energy work. And what we're doing is we're using movement and breath to open up different pathways in our energetic field through the body. Just like a microwave or an MRI, there's energy constantly moving through our system. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, hands plant, stepping back to our plank pose. Yay, plank pose. So switch our perspective. Let's enjoy this pose. What's enjoyable about this pose? We're strengthening. We're pushing through a challenge. We're becoming a stronger mind, body, and soul. Breathe in. With the exhale, find your chaturanga. So lower to your degree. Maybe those knees assist. Inhale is an upward dog or low cobra. And exhale, downward facing dog. You guys all have such beautiful, strong chaturangas. I love it. Take a breath here. That breath is the most important part of your practice. Without it, movement is nothing. With your next inhale, left leg sweeps up to the sky. Pause here, bend and extend the leg a couple times. Maybe opening up that hip. Rolling of the ankle. Very intuitive movement here. Eventually, left leg sweeps up. Squeeze the glute to keep it there, squaring the hips. Inhale. Exhale, pulling the knee into the chest. Hold and hover. Inhale, re-extend that left leg up. Exhale, knee to chest, step to your runner's lunge. And we started our runner's lunge with that back right knee to the ground to start. Again, you want the right hip stacked with the knee. So rather than sinking into this really intense hip opener, which feels lovely, we're looking for a little bit more engagement and tucking of the pelvis under, pressing left foot into the ground. Inhale, arms sweep up. Exhale, left hand comes to your hip, right arm reaches up and over, finding a side stretch here. So you should feel that all the way from right knee to right fingertips, opening up through the rib cage and hip. Last inhale and exhale. Coming back to center, realigning through your spine, and then crossing right arm over left thigh, coming into your twist. That left arm can open for the back, or maybe it stays on your hip. So again, with me now, that inhale, lengthen up through your crown. Bring that energy towards the sky. And then that exhale, the energy is twisting a little bit deeper. One more breath here. Press into that left foot. Untwisting. Here's one of our challenges of our class. Bringing your hands towards your heart, tucking the right toes under, and lifting your way up to a crescent lunge. Once you're there, feel free to readjust through the feet if they need to be a little bit more hip distance apart. That back right knee has a gentle tuck to it. So notice the difference between this, see how my back is a little bit more arched, and this, my back is nice and flat here. With the inhale, lifting up. Exhale, dip down. Inhale. Exhale. So it's a little bit of balance here. Here's 8, 7, 6, 5. Active meditation. Here's 3, 2, and 1. Hold in that dip for 3, 2, 1. Inhale, lift up, bring your hands to your heart. Establish that connection through the front left foot as we pick right knee up to the chest. Hold and hover here. Use that hip flexor strength. This turns into our chair pose, letting that right foot land, sinking the hips down, chair position. So you might need to adjust the feet more hip distance apart, maybe a little closer together. Notice if you're arching and sending your chest forward, I want you to tuck everything underneath you. Knees are stacked over top the ankles for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hinge from the hips, forward fold. So notice how when we're in that chair pose, the legs are really squeezing, working so hard. And then when you hinge forward, you can relax and let that energy just kind of shoot up and down the legs. I think a lot of times we want to walk off of our mat with this like huge, profound experience that happened. But a lot of energy work, a lot of meditation and yoga and movement, it's very subtle. And you have to be opening your perspective to be able to receive those subtle messages. Inhale, strong halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Hands plant, stepping back to your plank pose. Heels are pressing back, chest is slightly pulling forward. Again, without hyperextending your elbows, press through the shoulder blades. Inhale together. Exhale, chaturanga. Take your version. Maybe those knees come to the ground for support. Inhale, up dog or low cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Taking a moment here, if you need to come into a child's pose or grab a drink of water really quick. Have Cheryl demonstrating for our Instagram and Facebook viewers, so we got to give her a chance to have us some water. So good to see all of you guys. And it truly is something really special to be practicing outside when the weather allows it. It's a totally different experience. And it always reminds me that Mystic isn't just a studio. Mystic is this. Mystic is the community. Wherever you are, take 2 more breaths before returning back to that downward facing dog. So either a child's pose, either just an easy sitting pose. Maybe you're still enjoying some liquid. When you're ready, let's continue a strong, healthy practice together by reaching back up into your downward facing dog. If at any point downward facing dog no longer feels good, you can always stay in that table pose. That's a beautiful expression as well. Just as strong and important. With your next inhale, bend the knees, gaze forward, prepare. Exhale, walk or hop to the front of your mat, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, an active pose. Exhale, fold and soften. Inhale, slowly start to roll yourself to standing. Finish it off by reaching those arms up overhead. And exhale, hands to heart. Beautiful. So Cheryl, I'm just going to ask you to turn forward so that we can see our viewers. Coming into a couple balancing postures. So let's start by planting both feet into the ground. I like to do that by picking up the toes and then landing them back on the ground. Hopefully you don't get a foot cramp. From here, bringing your hands to your heart, weight transfers into the right leg, pull left knee up to the chest using that hip flexor strength. From here, interlacing hands on left shin, pulling the knee in towards the chest position. Now, if you want to try working on that kick, one of the little techniques I use is bringing my palm underneath left thigh and just pulsing a couple kicks here. Yeah. Very challenging. It's okay if you fall out of it. Just get back into it. Just like that cat we saw fling itself from a tree. You'll be all good. That was pretty silly. Maybe for that last second you hold that extension. Pull your chest forward. Make it count. Beautiful. We're going to turn this into our tree pose. Let that left foot come somewhere onto the inner thigh or the shin area, trying to avoid the knee. Very challenging way to get into our tree pose this morning. So find that meditation. Find that little bit of stillness within each beat of that heart. Maybe the arms reach up. Beautiful. Look at our little forest here. Meditate in this pose. It's okay that that right leg is burning a little bit. You're creating new muscle development. Our dismount out of this posture is crescent lunge. So sending the left toes behind you, finding that crescent lunge position. Inhale, arms reach up. Exhale, dial left heel down, opening up to your warrior two. Yeah. The demonstrator has the hardest job on the field. So in your warrior two position, take your time to arrive. You might need to bounce that right front leg a couple times to really solidify yourself into this. What's important in this pose is that that right knee does not go past the ankle. You want to keep the joints nice and stacked here. The outer edge of the left foot presses for the back of the mat. So you're feeling a contrast of right foot energetically pressing forward. And with the exhale, extend your warrior. So letting that right forearm drop down. Keep this moving here. Inhale to reverse. Exhale to extend. 2 more times. In and out. Letting this dance just open up the rib cage and the hips. The next time you come into that reverse warrior, hold for a moment. Make sure you didn't lose that bend in the front right knee. Bend a little deeper. Press through the outer edge of the left foot. Imagine I'm pressing the outer edge of the left foot and I'm telling you to press back into my hand. Keep that chest lifted and open. Relax right shoulder away from the ear. Dismount into that side angle position so the right forearm comes in towards the inner right thigh. You can start to rotate left arm a couple times. Now it's very common in our side angle to want to press those hips back. I'm here to remind you to keep those hips stacked right below your body. So keeping everything in one solid line. Take those rotations in the opposite direction. And then picking your way back up to your warrior two position. So our balancing posture in warrior two position is going to be our balancing half moon. So if you have a block or water bottle, I recommend putting it about 6 inches in front of the right toes. And what you're going to do is you're going to start to shift your weight into that right leg And slowly lift the left toes up off of the ground. So we're rotating our weight forward. Hips are going to stay open towards me. Yes. Beautiful. Flex that flying foot for me. Did that change the pose? Kate, flex that flying foot. Yes. So that glute should be squeezing here. Hips are open. Rib cage is rotating over towards me. Here's our last 2 breaths. Worthy of the challenge. Keep that in mind, you guys. Turbulence is okay. Beautiful. Dismounting back into that warrior 2 position. Lengthening right leg, turning the toes in. Wide-legged position. So opening up your arms into a T. And then exhale, hinging from the hips, finding a wide-legged forward fold. So this is our little bit of a reward after that challenging balancing half moon. We're letting our hamstrings lengthen. Relaxing our head towards the earth. This is your pose for the next 5 breaths. So if you want to bend and extend or rock the hips side to side, that's more than welcome. If you have anything else in your practice that you're working on here, like a headstand or forearm stand. Here's our last breath. If you're working on something that you're not ready to come out of yet, that's quite all right. Eventually start to walk the hands over towards right foot, come back to the runner's lunge. Hands plant, right foot steps back to meet left, plank pose. Look at that. We're back to our favorite pose, the strongest one of them all. Press those heels back. Hold for 3, 2, 1, and chaturanga with the exhale, slowly lower. Inhale is that opening of the heart. And exhale, downward facing dog. 2 breaths here, and then we'll take that on the other side. And it's funny, the second side always goes a bit faster because we have the muscle memory. We know where our body is going. Inhale, bend the knees, gaze forward. Exhale, walk or hop to the front of your mat, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, fold. Inhale, slowly start to rise and circle, sweep the arms up. Exhale, hands to heart, ground down here. Coming back for our balancing postures. This time the left foot is going to stay grounded. So maybe you open up the toes and then plant them back on the ground. So balance and core starts from the foot, not from the belly. Hands at heart. Start to pull that right knee into the chest. Using that hip flexor strength. Then interlacing hands on right shin. Pulling the knee in towards the chest. Maybe you rotate the ankle. Now when you feel balanced and secured, left arm opens out to the left, right leg out to the right, dancing Shiva pose. If you liked that practice of the kick, you might interlace the palm underneath right leg and kick a couple times. Yeah, so it takes pretty tremendous hamstring stretch. Karina, try grabbing it from the opposite side. Yeah, that way you can keep that hip and shoulder rotation open. Maybe for that last breath, that leg stays kicked out and you hold. Very challenging. Awesome. Dismounting into our tree pose so that inner right foot comes towards the leg, just trying to avoid the knee. So we avoid the knee because we need that standing left leg to be super strong. So strong that we're going to push a little bit of our weight into the leg with right foot. That will lock you into this pose. Tree pose. Balance. Connect. Notice how that left foot is not staying still. It's always readjusting. I can see all of your little ankle muscles working so hard to keep your body lifted. That is what we're going for. A dismount into crescent lunge. So send the right toes behind you. Find your crescent lunge. Set it up. Arms reach up. Breathe in. Exhale. Dial right heel down. Open up to your warrior 2 position. So this time we have a bend through that front left leg. We want to make sure that the knee is not going past the ankle. So I say that because as soon as that knee goes past the ankle, there's a tremendous amount of force being pressed into the front part of our knee. Also, the hips like to sass a little bit here, so try to keep those hips stacked right below shoulders. Find your warrior two strength. Maybe you gaze over left fingertips. Notice if you're arching through the lower back, try to tuck that pelvis under just a touch. Inhale, flip left palm, reverse your warrior. And with the exhale, extend your warrior. So taking a couple more dancing warrior twos, alternating between an inhale, reverse, and exhale, extend. We'll take about 2 more at your own pace. Notice how this dynamic movement allows you to come into a stronger variation. The next time you reverse that warrior, hold and pause here. Notice if you lost that bend through left leg, keep that left knee nice and bent. Relaxing left shoulder, but keeping that energy reaching up and over left fingertips. Breathe in. Exhale into your side angle. So letting that left forearm drop towards the inner left shin and knee area. Then you can rotate that right arm a couple times. So taking some big circles, almost like you're strumming a really big guitar. Take it in the opposite direction. Those legs are still locked in. The only thing moving is that upper body. Imagine there's a wall behind you and you're pressing your shoulders into that wall evenly. Beautiful. Slowly returning back to that warrior two position. We're going to go for our balancing half moon. So maybe you bring a block or a water bottle in front of you. You're going to bring your weight onto that left leg so that the right leg can lift up. Balancing half moon position. So those hips are open for the front towards me. Notice that that left rib cage is rotating over towards this side of the field. Flex that flying foot. Nice. Did you notice how that leg just lifted just an inch by flexing that foot? Because you're engaging your glute. Hold here for 3, 2, and 1. Dismount back into that warrior two. Lengthen left leg, turn the toes in. Open your heart, breathe in. Exhale, hinging from the hips, finding that wide-legged forward fold. Those balancing half moons were such a beautiful thing to see. Watching your focus. And I truly admire how dedicated you are to making this practice work for your body. Holding these postures is not an easy task. And sometimes we get super judgmental in our head, like, oh, I fell out of that pose, or, oh, I wasn't balanced. The fact that you're doing it in general is amazing. Walking the hands over towards the left foot, returning back to a runner's lunge. Hands plant, left foot steps back to meet right. Plank pose. Drop down onto the forearms, forearm plank. This is our last little push here, you guys. I know you have it in you. This is going to round your entire practice out. So because we're on the forearms, we're pulling our chest forward a little bit. Drop the hips just an inch lower. Hold for 5, 4. It's almost over. 3. You got this, Kate. 2. And 1. Lower the knees and hips to the ground. Find a Sphinx pose. So we're using that connection of the forearms on the earth to pull apart our abdominal muscles. You can take a quick look at Cheryl, Karina, Stacy. We're using that forearm connection to pull the abdominals apart from one another. Head is a natural extension of the spine. Eventually relaxing the chest, arms alongside the body, one ear to the mat. Taking a quick little belly shavasana here. Breathe into the earth. Press your belly full with air into the ground below you. Feel your heart beating into the earth. A beautiful breeze to reward us. Noticing all the sounds. finding a quad stretch here. So let's bring left forearm underneath the head as a pillow so that we can bend right knee and grab onto foot or ankle. Yeah. If you can't make that connection, you can always prop yourself up onto the left forearm, lifting your chest. Nice. And there's an activity of the right knee pulling towards the back of the mat. So you should feel a beautiful stretch through the front chain of the body on the right side. When you're ready, switching it out for the other side. So bringing the right forearm underneath the head, bending left knee, grabbing onto foot or ankle. One side might feel tighter than the other. Just know that that's all good. Very common, especially the lifestyle we live. We do a lot of things on our dominant side, especially like driving is mostly with that right leg. This is why we take this practice, because our everyday lives do kind of put us into some bad habits of our body, hunching over, using one side more than the other. Releasing both legs down your mat. You can bend the knees and windshield wiper feet from side to side. This is one of my favorite poses for any lower back issues. If you ever wake up in the morning and you feel as though you have a tight lower back, this is a really easy way to unwind all of that connective tissue. And you don't even have to get up to do it. You can just roll over in bed and do it. You can tell everyone you did yoga in the morning. Lengthening those legs back down the mat. Bringing your arms hands right alongside your chest and pressing your way back up into your table pose. Once in your table pose, you can take a couple little movements here, maybe rocking of the hips side to side or finding a quick little child's pose. Maybe finding a cat position, curling and rounding as you press the hands into the floor and then shaking the head yes and no. So common to have a really tightness in the back of the neck. This is a place where we often feel very vulnerable. So we kind of often shield that area of the body. Our next destination will be our pigeon pose. So if you prefer to take that reclined on your back, you can transition onto your back. If you like to go for that prone pigeon version, we'll go ahead for that by tucking the toes under, lifting the hips up and back. Inhale, right leg sweeps up. And then exhale, pulling the right knee towards right wrist, keeping the thigh parallel to the long edge of the mat as you start to settle your way down here. So a couple options might be bringing a block underneath the right hip. You might also consider opening left knee out to the left. Yeah. I also like to bring a block underneath my forehead so I can kind of relax my way down onto it. Nice. I love how we're using our props. And this is a pretty intense hip opener for the right side, but it should be enjoyable. It should never feel achy or, there should never be any cramping. So if that's the case, you might need to come off of your edge just a touch and come back to soothing exhales. And you can kind of notice how when we first enter into this pose, there is a little bit of tightness, a little bit of resistance. But if we stay with it and continue those beautiful exhales, you can really soften your way, opening up all of that connective tissue in right hip. 2 more rounds of breath here. Slowly lifting your way back up, taking your time to get there. Our next move will be just taking it to the other side. So tuck the left toes under, lift the hips back up. Take any little movements here. You can also visit a table pose instead. Eventually that left leg extends and then you pull the knee towards left wrist, making sure that the left thigh is parallel to the long edge of the mat before settling your way in. Again, block underneath that left hip is a beautiful way to solidify a soft and beneficial pose for your body. And relaxing once you're there. A block underneath the head can really help that relaxation. You have a tight neck. Just using this opportunity to take each exhale and soften your way down. Finding 2 more breaths here. When you're ready, slowly starting to pick your way up. And just to round it off, we will extend back in one last little downward facing dog. And then we'll transition onto our backs. So take your time to get there. Taking any little wiggles or waggles between. Once you're on your backs, you can take a beautiful long stretch, expanding your entire body, trying to get as long as you possibly can. And then pulling right knee into the chest, giving yourself a squeeze here, finding a wind-relieving pose. If you want to bring the left sole of the foot onto the ground, this makes it a little bit less intense for the hips. And when we pull the right knee into the chest, we're constricting or massaging the belly or movement in the belly. This is going to take us into our twist, so letting that right leg cross over left leg. Now in your twist, you can kind of play around and decide which one is going to work best for you. You might consider bringing a block underneath right knee. You might consider bending that left leg as well. Arms can be open into a T, if that's okay, to have your arms on a little bit of grass. And it's okay to surrender to some of the things that are making you stressed or creating a little bit of resistance in the body. I find that usually when we have that resistance up, it makes it a lot more challenging. But once we let that resistance go and we surrender to the things that we cannot control, all of a sudden things seem to become a little bit lighter. And that's all you. That is your perspective shifting. Bringing the legs back to center. When you're ready, left knee is going to pull into the chest. Give yourself a squeeze. Again, the sole of the right foot can plant on the ground if this is a little too intense. Relax the shoulders onto the earth. Using that bicep strength to pull the knee in. And when we come to the left side, now we're massaging the descending colon. And these postures have been handed down for hundreds of years. This is like ancient tool that we can use to shift our energy in the body. Taking this into your twist, so letting that left leg come up and cross over right leg. Again, taking any variation here that feels good. A couple breaths. Each exhale is going to relax you deeper into your twist. When you're ready, unwinding. Taking any last posture of your choice. If you want to find knees to the chest, pulling in, or a waterfall pose, lengthening the legs up to the sky. Whoa, baby. Bridge pose. You're going to have to teach me how to do that later. Beautiful. And eventually just letting yourself coast into stillness. And I say coast because I don't want it to be abrupt or feel like a chore to come into stillness. It should really feel welcome when it's ready. Now here's where that beautiful wave of breath comes over you. Maybe you keep the eyes open just softly so you can gaze up at the clouds. And an option here to either have the arms alongside you with the palms facing up, receiving all of that energy, or maybe switching it up and placing the palms somewhere on the body. Maybe one over the heart, one over the belly. This is your time. And taking a deep breath in and letting it go. Again, in and out. Slowly starting to wiggle the toes and fingers without letting your mind jump to the future. Just start to expand your breath a little bit here, reawakening wherever you floated away to, just letting all of your energy slowly settle back into your physical body. Maybe reaching the arms up overhead, finding a full body stretch like you're waking up in the morning for the very first time. Perhaps pulling the knees into the chest, giving yourself a big squeeze. And maybe as you give yourself a hug, you just tell yourself how much you love yourself. It's okay. We need to learn how to show our bodies a little bit more respect. This is our vessel for experiencing love, experiencing laughter and happiness. Rocking yourself over to one side and then pressing your way up into a seated position, taking your time to arrive. And once you arrive, maybe placing both hands over heart, or one hand over heart, one hand over belly. Sometimes I like to even give my belly a little rub. A location where we tend to hold a lot of fear and anxiety in the belly. Taking this moment in gratitude to honor this practice as well as each other. Thanking this mysterious universe for bringing us here together today, such a cosmic way. And we'll seal our practice in with the sound of Om, letting our entire vibration fill this whole field. In that hand over heart, you're going to feel that vibration of your Om. Let's start with a cleansing breath. Breathe in and out. And for Om, in breath. And now to each other, we bow our heads and say, Namaste. Thank you guys all so much for being here. You are all rock stars. Thank you everyone online. We will see you tomorrow for Kat's class at 8 a.m. Thanks so much. Thank you.